The behavior modification approach I regret using for 4 years. Have you ever realized that something you've been doing as a parent for years might actually be working against your relationship with your child? That moment hit me like a ton of bricks when my daughter was 4 years old, and I want to share that journey with you today. For 4 years, I was the queen of sticker charts, timeouts, and reward systems. I had read all the popular parenting books that promised well-behaved children if you just followed their step-by-step behavior modification techniques. And honestly, sometimes they worked, at least on the surface. My daughter would clean up her toys to earn a sticker. She would stop tantruming to avoid a timeout. She would eat her vegetables to get dessert. But something felt off, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I remember this one evening. My daughter had just thrown her food on the floor at dinner. Without missing a beat, I went into my rehearsed script. That's unacceptable behavior. Now you've lost your screen time for tomorrow. I watched her little face crumple, not with remorse for what she'd done, but with a look of disconnection and hurt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment, and countless others like it. Was I raising a child who would make good choices because she understood their value? Or was I training her to perform for rewards and avoid punishments? And more importantly, what was this doing to our relationship? Around that time, I came across Dr. Gabor Maté's work on attachment and connection. He explains that when we focus primarily on modifying a child's behavior rather than understanding the feelings and needs driving that behavior, we miss the opportunity for real growth and connection. His words hit home when he said, "Behind every behavior is a feeling, and behind every feeling is a need." I had been focusing all my energy on the behavior, the symptom, rather than helping my child understand and process her emotions, the cause. It was also around this time that I had a conversation with my own mother about my childhood. She told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Sarah, I was always so busy trying to make you behave properly that I sometimes forgot to enjoy who you were." That was my wake-up call. I didn't want my daughter to look back on her childhood and feel that I was more concerned with her behavior than with knowing her heart. So I made a change. I stopped seeing my daughter's difficult behaviors as problems to fix and started seeing them as communications to understand. When she threw food, instead of jumping to consequences, I'd say, "I see you're feeling frustrated. Let's figure out what's happening together." When she refused to share with friends, instead of immediately enforcing the sharing is caring rule, I'd acknowledge, "It feels hard to share sometimes. I understand that. Let's talk about how we can both feel good about the situation." I'm not saying I became a permissive parent overnight. Boundaries are still incredibly important, but I changed how I set and enforced those boundaries. I moved from a place of control to a place of connection. The results have been transformative. My daughter doesn't behave perfectly. No child does, and that's not the goal anyway. But she's learning to identify her emotions, express her needs appropriately, and make choices from a place of genuine understanding rather than fear of punishment or desire for reward. More importantly, our relationship has deepened. She comes to me with problems because she sees me as a safe place, not as the behavior police. She's developing intrinsic motivation rather than just responding to external rewards and punishments. This shift wasn't easy. It required me to unlearn many of my own conditioning about what good parenting looks like. It meant I had to get comfortable with my own emotions first, which honestly was the hardest part. How could I help my child navigate big feelings when I wasn't skilled at handling my own? I had to face my triggers and realize that when I responded harshly to certain behaviors, it was often more about my own unresolved issues than my child's actions. The times I overreacted to normal child behaviors like messiness or loudness, those were my issues, not hers. Dr. Daniel Siegel's concept of connect before correct became my mantra. Before trying to teach a lesson or correct a behavior, I needed to connect with my child emotionally. This simple shift, connecting first, changed everything. I remember one specific incident that showed me how powerful this approach can be. My daughter was having an absolute meltdown in a grocery store. Under my old system, this would have resulted in threats, removal of privileges, maybe even a forced timeout in the car. Instead, I knelt down to her level, made eye contact, and simply said, "I see you're having really big feelings right now. I'm here with you." I stayed calm and present. After she calmed down, we talked about what happened. She told me she was overwhelmed by the noise and lights, something I never would have learned if I just focused on stopping the behavior. That's the thing about behavior modification approaches. They often work in the moment to stop an unwanted behavior, but they don't address what's causing the behavior in the first place. It's like putting a bandage on a wound without cleaning it first. I've learned that children's challenging behaviors are often their way of communicating something they don't have the words for yet. My job as a parent isn't just to shape those behaviors, but to be a translator, to help my child understand her own internal world. Another eye-opening moment came from reading Dr. Ross Greene's work. His approach, "Kids do well if they can," completely reframed how I saw my daughter's challenging behaviors. If she wasn't doing well, it wasn't because she was being defiant or manipulative. It was because she lacked the skills to do better in that moment. My role shifted from enforcer to coach, helping her develop the skills she needed rather than punishing her for not having them yet. This was especially important for things like emotional regulation, impulse control, and frustration tolerance, skills that are still developing throughout childhood. Now, when my daughter struggles, I ask myself, what skill is she missing here? Instead of, how do I get her to behave? This subtle shift changes everything about how I respond. The truth is, I still use elements of behavior modification sometimes. I'm not perfect, and there are situations where clear consequences make sense. But these tools are no longer the foundation of my parenting approach. They're occasional tools in a much larger toolbox that prioritizes connection, understanding, and skill building. If you're feeling stuck in a cycle of rewards, punishments, and power struggles with your child, I want you to know there's another way. It doesn't mean throwing out all boundaries or letting chaos reign. It means approaching discipline as teaching rather than punishment, and prioritizing your relationship above perfect behavior. I've created a free guide called From Correction to Connection that walks you through practical steps to make this shift in your own parenting. It includes conversation starters, emotional regulation techniques for both you and your child, and a troubleshooting section for common challenges. Click the link in the description to download it now. Remember, our children need our guidance. But more than that, they need our presence, our understanding, and our unconditional love. When we prioritize connection over correction, we create the secure foundation they need to truly thrive. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What behavior modification approaches have you tried with your children? Have you experienced a similar shift in your parenting philosophy? Thank you for being here. Your child is lucky to have a parent who cares enough to reflect on these important issues.